Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Fury. When I think of David Ayers, who directed and wrote this film, his past two films that I've seen from him, End of Watch and Sabotage, and he also wrote Training Day. But End of Watch and Sabotage are two films that really know what kind of movie they are and turn into very Hollywood versions of that, usually, and end in typical ways. Fury probably could have used a little more of that. Now, I think David Ayers really knows the ins and outs of a World War II movie, particularly this period of World War II. This is the end of World War II. This film takes place in April of 1945. The war was a very dark place at that point. He really gets the mood of the time period, or of that specific time. If you watch movies that were released towards the end of the war, they were a lot more darker. Even though it was getting clearer that the war could possibly end soon, it hadn't ended yet, and it had been going on. Some of these people had been out there for 5 years, constantly at war, 3-4 years, with no end really in sight for a lot of them, and that really drains a person of their soul and of their youthful energy and really ruins them. And this film feels like that. It feels like a war that's been going on for a long time. David Ayers also gets how a group works in a war movie, even if he does it in a very cliched way, which he certainly does. But he gets it a lot better than, like, when I saw a film recently led by another member of the Ocean's 11 team, which was Monuments Men, which I honestly didn't think George Clooney, who directed that, he kept saying it's like The Dirty Dozen or The Great Escape, and I never got the sense that he had watched any of those movies in a while. He had this kind of romanticized view of them and made this other movie. And Fury isn't like that at all. Fury gets the time period. It gets the kind of World War II movies that everyone grew up on, those rough and tough Longest Day kind of things that guys watch, and you watch with your dad on Memorial Day. One of the things that David Ayers has gotten the kind of genre that this is in probably better than the last two films I've seen him do. This is his big epic movie that the other two films really didn't feel like. He felt more like a genre kind of action director, and I kind of wish he had done more of that in Fury, because that's the parts of Fury I thought worked the best. When he knows how to make a World War II movie within its kind of genre conventions, it really works. He almost kind of gets the specific genre conventions, but he doesn't understand how to use that throughout the rest of the picture. There's parts that feel like this is a 90s kind of World War II film. There's parts that really feel like I'm watching a 40s World War II film, or a big kind of Hollywood World War II film in the 50s or the 60s. And then there's one sequence that feels like I'm watching a 70s World War II movie. And it's just really kind of all over the place. It kind of didn't mesh well. It worked for the characters, but not really for the movie. And it seemed a little jarring. He wasn't really trying to do something postmodern with World War II films the way Tarantino did with Inglourious Basterds. A bunch of guys in a tank who have been in this tank together for the past 3 years. Brad Pitt is their leader, and the other guys, Shia LaBeouf, Michael Pena, and John Berthal, have been together for a long time, and one of their crew has been killed. You never really get to see him. Then they've been assigned a new guy, Logan Lerman, who is a fresh-faced young man who has been sent to them, and they have to show him how to use the tank and shoot people and be a good soldier. He's kind of the audience surrogate, which the film only uses sometimes. It's too much into the action to really see everything from his eyes. This film isn't that tight of a screenplay in that regard. You see them go through various conflicts as the tank keeps rolling through Nazi Germany. If you know World War II movies, and specifically films that were made actually during World War II, you'd know that they have literally, seriously, I'm not joking, made a movie about every little segment of the army they could possibly think of. They really did. It was ridiculous how many of them they made. It's interesting to note that Fury actually marks the first time this specific tank has ever been used in a World War II movie. It features a tank called the Tiger 131. It's the only Tiger I or Tiger 1 tank that is actually functioning in the world, so I guess they just got in there under the wire. I've actually never seen World War II tank film before, a film that just centers on a tank, and I thought they did a good job at building their relationship together. It does kind of have that feel that a good group World War II film needs to have, and I think David Ayers got that very well. But his inconsistency with what he's doing with using the various kind of different kinds of World War II films shows that he certainly seems like he studied the genre and understood the genre and wanted this to be his big epic as a director. I definitely look at David Ayers as a better director than I did after I watched Sabotage. It feels like more of a more seasoned studio director than I really thought he was capable of, and not make it super modern. I think the score falls under that a lot more than his direction. The score almost took me out of it. I wish they had someone who made a really good score for this. I think it could have really helped this film quite a bit. This problem with any group World War II film is that you need to have a strong leader who's a charismatic actor who has this strong presence. And I thought Brad Pitt would be kind of good at that. Probably. There were a lot of moments it didn't feel like he was as strong as he could have been. By the end, I was totally with the character, but it took me a while to get that. I understand he's trying to have these complex characters, but it didn't really work as well. I felt like everyone else on the crew knew their characters and knew their place within this genre a lot better than Brad Pitt did. And if you think of major World War II group films, you think of the story of G.I. Joe, you think of Robert Mitchum, you think of The Dirty Dozen, you think of Lee Marvin, you think of The Guns of Navarone, you think of Gregory Peck, and you think of Inglourious Bastards, and you think of Brad Pitt. And I was surprised like he couldn't really do that as well as he had done in Inglourious Bastards. You kind of think because he looks the same way that he could probably like pull that off. He was trying to do more with it than probably he should have. He should have come at it more as the movie star than he was really doing, and I think that's maybe more of what that needed. But it didn't feel as strong as it did later in the film. But I liked everyone else in the tank. It kind of reminded me a little more of The Dirty Dozen and how well all of those guys knew their place within the film. You have people like Michael Pena and John Barathol who are well-seasoned character actors and know how to use that within the film. And even Shia LaBeouf, who's somebody, I don't think I've seen Shia LaBeouf be this good in a long time. Be able to use the little screen time he had in some sequences to his advantage takes a really good actor for that. It kind of reminded me of the promise we thought he had, or we used to think he had. I hadn't seen that from him in a while, so that was surprising. Even Logan Lerman I thought was good as the typical movie plot of the new guy coming into a situation that he's not accustomed to. In some places he was a little too fresh-faced. The one scene that I think felt very 70s is there's a scene where Logan Lerman and Brad Pitt go into this house after they've taken over a town. They find these two women who are in their apartment and they start having food with them, and then the rest of the crew of the tank shows up and they have this kind of very aggressive, very kind of almost shot in a very 70s way confrontation. It just didn't feel like it really needed to be in there, and it felt like his approach to that was odd. The thing with this movie is there's so many different ways World War II films have been done, and I almost feel like Inglourious Bastards almost kind of killed the genre, because where else can you go after you've killed Hitler? Fury kind of looks at it like, well, we don't know where we'd push it really, let's just do what we've done before. And that's fine, and I think there's definitely room for a very genre World War II film to come out, and that would be actually a change of pace. The action sequences felt very clean and almost 90s, and that just felt odd. What kind of a style are you going for, and why are you picking these different styles, and what was the point of some of these things? Like that sequence in the apartment just kept going and going, and it seemed like really almost a throwaway, like I was watching the weird director's cut scene that David Ayer like needed to have it, why he kept switching around between the various styles. He really needed to pick one. It's almost like he had a theory behind the basic soul of the movie, but the rest of it he seemed to be jumping around a bunch. He needs to be more distinctive in the film he's presenting, and I feel like he was closer to that than I've ever seen him before. David Ayer's direction and writing, as much as it helps this film and gives it the reasons that I like about it, it also kind of like detracts me. He knows how to make this kind of movie, but it feels like he wants to experiment in all these different ways and not give you a distinctive answer on other points. And that's like not really what I want from a World War II movie. If you look at The Dirty Dozen and The Great Escape and all those great, group of guy kind of movies, they weren't too out there. I get it's trying to be like this character study thing, it's trying to pretend like it is, but it was really a lot more aggressive and had a lot more battling and blood and gore. I don't really want to write this film off because this kind of makes me look at David Ayer in a different way. It makes me think he could do a really big budget film. He's kind of interesting that he went from End of Watch to Sabotage to Fury, which are like not really that alike. I understand they have kind of these bleak worldviews and are very violent violent and macho and testosterone driven. I would be curious to see him do another big budget kind of movie like this, especially one that's as bleak as it is but works so well within his time period. I think the others are more posturing, but this kind of goes along with where these people were psychologically at the time that this film takes place. That's the thing with David Ayer. He seems like almost like a better screenwriter at some points than a director, and I don't think Fury really changes my mind about that, but I still respect him a lot more because of what he did. There's something about directors who kind of know what they're doing a little bit more and then fail on that that's a little more honorable and nicer to watch than somebody who just experiments out the wazoo and doesn't exactly know what they're doing. There's enough of a backbone here to really get you through this. So maybe this is during the Memorial Day marathon would be the film. Probably play at an undesirable time because it's not like going to live up to those classics. But at least it understood those classics and understood what you needed to have to make those kind of classics happen. And I think he just needed to make up his mind what era and what exactly kind of World War II film he's making, because there's kind of a big difference between the films they were making in the 40s with a World War II film and like The Dirty Dozen and what would go on later in the 70s. But combining all those things, those are very different ideologies, and he almost didn't understand the points those films are trying to make with their World War II movie, leaving Fury to be a big Hollywood film that was searching for a soul but never really found it because it didn't really understand the point of finding it really would be. So if you have seen Fury and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.